All right. Go. All right. Good evening, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome, and I'm your host, Nika Cherrelles. This is the ItCast, Real Talk on Sex. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we're creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. We thank you so much for joining us tonight. And just to let you know, to support more of our work, please visit us on Patreon to support the ItCast and learn more about our work at NikaCherrelles.com. That's NikaCherrelles.com. And lastly, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we can keep bringing work like this and impacting greater and greater communities. Tonight's topic is Real Talk on Pornography. And today in the booth, we have our newest community correspondent, Luckie Alexander. Luckie, come on in and join us. There you are.
Howdy, howdy. How are you, Nika?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right.
Yes, how are you tonight?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good. I have to say, before we dive in, you are back by popular demand. I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you are now a new member of the ItCast team and you're going to be a part of these conversations as we go forward. Like for real, we love your energy so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Definitely appreciate it. Super happy to be on the team. Ready to get these conversations rolling.
Yes. So with that, on that note, we're talking about pornography.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about some porn. I'm here for it.
Hello. So first off, what are your general thoughts on porn? Like, where do you stand?
Uh I mean it's porn, right? For me, I kind of just I don't. I enjoy it. I'm one of those people that does. There's millions and millions of people that do. I think porn is a personal choice for folks. So either you like it or you don't. Um, I think that in different spaces and different things, it gives a different perspective on what sex looks like, right, for folks. It can be an educational tool. Most don't see it as that, but yeah, I think that's where I'm at on porn.
I love that. That's pretty perfect actually. One of the things I say is like porn is not good or bad, like it is.
Right,
And it's something that exists in the world we live in and it's a part of our sexual landscape. Like it's
right.
2021. I imagine most people of a certain age have seen or are familiar with pornography to some degree.
I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure. Absolutely. um, I'm kind of up there in age myself. Well, I mean, not really. I'm kind of in the middle. But porn was one of those things that was like super hush hush taboo, and like these days, people are like, there's an app for
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. There's an app for everything, and yes, there's an app
Right.
for porn.
Right.
Like live
So
custom porn.
exactly. Now you're carrying it around in your phone.
Yes.
So yeah.
I love it. So the reason why I wanted to do this episode, you mentioned education. And one of the things that I have to say is like, porn is not sex education. And
Not at
there's a
all.
lot of people out there who are learning about sex through porn. Like that may be the only thing that they're getting information around. So I really wanted to sit down and talk about like where porn fits in, what is like how people are using it educationally, and then also what is sex education and how what are the holes in that. So this topic is hugely important to me. And I'll tell you, the original title was Porn Education, which left like it just led to a lot of confusion. People like, so educational porn?
Right. Because I was thinking like educational porn. Nope, it doesn't work. But it does, right? It super does because in some aspects, porn gives folks like their first taste of what to do, right? It's kind of like a how-to for sex for some folks. Um, and I know that, in my generation, a lot of the guys were like watching porn to figure out what to do and how to do it. And but it's not education in the way that it needs to be. I
Mhm.
think that well, it's probably not educational in the way that the porn industry doesn't want it to be, because around condoms and PrEP and HIV and all of those different things are not conversations that they're having during a porn session, right? But I think that the porn industry should be a little more responsible. You know,
Yes.
I think
And
they, yeah,
yeah,
there's several porn, people that have said, um, condoms make it less appealing to watch, right? But it also sends a message.
it does. It does. It really does. And I agree. I mean, you talk about responsibility inside of the porn industry, and there are so many things to be responsible for. You talk about like safe sex, talking about like one of the things that that's there for me is like racism in porn
Hmm.
and the
Absolutely.
clickbait that's out there. There's a lot of there's a lot of things that like I may not want in my psyche when I'm looking for something to just enjoy for, like for entertainment, and porn is entertainment.
Right.
Like, you be very clear, porn is
Right.
entertainment, it's not education. um and like how do we even hold them to account? I think that there really does take some like owning the conversation, because like porn is something else people aren't really going to talk about.
Right. And I think that if we can hold the tobacco companies, accountable for folks dying of cancer, then we can hold the porn industry accountable as well, right?
Absolutely.
But I think that even if we take the STDs and HIV and the risks out of it, right? What they're not showing a lot of times is like, what does it realistically look like to negotiate sex? You see what I'm saying? To negotiate those different nuances around, how do I give a person consent, or how do I come to a place where I can revoke that consent? A lot of folks don't know that they can at any moment. It doesn't matter whether you're in mid stroke, right? You still have the right and the choice to revoke that consent.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. I When the topic of educational porn popped up, I wasn't expecting that when I came up with the phrase, but it did occur to me that there are two organizations out there that I can say are, I would say that if there were best practices, then you could look to these two places. The Sinclair Institute actually does educational instructional porn videos
wow.
for
Okay.
like couples and people trying to like spice things up. And it sounds very like you would never think that that was the Sinclair Institute, but
You're right, though. I mean, that doesn't sound like it would come out of that.
no.
The Harvard of porn.
And then last summer I was on some panels with kink.com, and they were actually sharing about some of the like practices inside the industry and really how they could be more responsible as an organization, which I thought was very profound, because I don't see a lot of production houses sitting down and saying, how can we remove the racism from our porn? How can we remove the classism? How can we remove the abuse? Like, how can we actually have people understand that these are consenting adults
Hmm.
over the age of 18, and they've actually worked out what you're about to see on camera? Like, they've negotiated it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
Um,
think that we, as the watcher, especially if they're going to do educational porn, um, make sure that you one, center consent, to show folks what that looks like to negotiate between each other when it comes to body parts, or especially, we have all of these different gender identities, we have all of these different sexual orientations. So what does that look like to negotiate between body parts, and what does that look like to say, I don't like to be touched here, or I don't like to be touched there, right? And I need you to respect those boundaries. So I think that should always be part of, if we're going to do educational porn, that needs to be included as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that there's that aspect of like, well, that's not sexy or exciting. And it's like, yeah, and get the information, like get the information from somewhere,
Right.
because it's out there, it's
Right.
available.
And
Um,
even if it's not sexy and exciting, it's okay, because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be educational.
right, right.
There you go.
At least in this conversation.
Right, right. I mean, if we're gonna watch educational porn, then it needs to be educational, not sexy, right? My mom used to tell me every day on my way to school, "You're not going to school for a fashion show. You're going to school to learn." Doesn't matter what kind of shoes you have on. You see what I mean? So I think if you're going to call it educational porn, then it needs to do just that, educate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that as a genre, as a realm, could expand. You
Hmm.
know, because like it's like yes, there's the clickbait and the algorithms and like the entertainment porn, and that's booming.
Right.
But we really let's talk about like sex education actually, because it's like there's something missing, like where sex education stops and then like porn begins, and there's a huge gap
Hmm.
in there when it comes to talking about intimacy, when it comes to talking about connection, when it comes to, you know, like even some of the positions that are occurring in porn, like it's not to say those can't happen, but like these are trained athletes.
Right. And now
Can
you
we?
got people with broken legs and arms that tried that at home. They should do a how-to video for it.
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
There's a lot of the people like it's not like that, like that's their day job. Like they are that flexible because they practiced.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. And that needs to be like a disclaimer. Like on the, I think if it just had this disclaimer, don't try this at home, at least the positions, right? Um, or at least if you try this at home, be careful. So I think there needs to be a disclaimer there, because I mean, I'm not real, I'm not real open about my personal business in the bedroom, but I've tried some things and I've gotten hurt because I didn't know that wasn't real.
yes,
You know,
yes.
I was 16 and I was like, I could do this. Yeah, no, they don't really handstand like that.
No.
Regular people don't do that for real. So they need to have a disclaimer.
That, oh my God, I would die. That would be the best porno ever, though, if I turned it on and it was like, warning, do not try this at home. Like I would have to watch. I would have to watch the whole
I'm
thing.
so, so like, what is it that I'm not trying at home? I'm totally here for this.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, I love that. And also that gets me thinking around like consent.
Yes.
So within the realm of pornography, the lack of consent can be something that's appealing. So like I remember one time I was out there looking at porn and there was this one called reluctant porn. It was a whole category
Hmm.
of women who really didn't want to have sex
Right.
and yet they were going to anyway. And I'm like, that promotes rape culture.
It
It's like
does.
when young people are out here and they're seeing this and they're not getting that that's not how to negotiate sex, like through coercion or things of that nature. And there's a lot in the industry that's like, how can we shift the narrative? Like these things shouldn't be typical. These things shouldn't be something that you're looking at without knowing what you're looking at, you know?
Right. And I think that disclosures, again, could work here, right? Because if we're telling folks, um, just like they make the tobacco companies, and I know I keep referring back because it was the closest that I could get here, it's just like they make the tobacco companies put on the side of cigarettes, may cause cancer, pregnant women shouldn't smoke, XYZ, right? Then why not put disclaimers on um, porn videos that say, hey, look, this is not typical sex for entertainment only?
I love that. I love that.
And it's too simple to do.
Wow. I mean, and I'm even thinking, like a little like safe sex disclaimer of like, please use condoms while having intercourse, with strangers or whatever. Like,
Right. Or even like use protection,
yeah, use protection. Period.
because we've got different parts that are intertwining with other parts, right? And different folks that are intertwining with other folks. I think that it's definitely necessary that we just say this is not typical sex. Be careful if you try this,
Yeah.
right? Because if you have a 16-year-old that's watching it because they didn't found something on the internet and snuck it, right? And they're looking at this and they're like, yo, that's how you do it. Now that throws a trajectory for that person to interact sexually or negotiate that way. Like that's their starting point, right? And so imagine where it's going to go from there. That they may not be able to negotiate sex on a healthy level if that's the first thing that they encounter,
Yeah.
without a disclaimer.
That's real. That's real. And I've seen that pop up quite a bit lately. I think, now we've got this whole generation of youth who are raised purely on the internet. So they've had
Mhm.
access to, not just what was in their parents' bedrooms, but like all of the crazy mess from all across the internet.
Exactly.
And they're like the approach can be dangerous, it can be unhealthy. So I think that there is a responsibility on both sides, in the realm of porn, to provide disclaimers and to let people know, like, hey, this is for entertainment, this is theater, this is theater.
Right.
And
These are actors.
exactly,
They train
train.
for this. Right.
Yes. And there's a lot. Oh God, this is great. I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but like talk about like the training. There's so much you don't see off camera before you get on camera with porn. Like I think about in the porn industry. So it's like, like a guy is not always rock hard. They have fluffers, like the women who like actually keep him aroused.
Oh wow.
Anytime we're talking about like anal play or anal pleasure, like there's a whole setup before you actually hit action on an anal scene
I'm sure.
that like is necessary.
I'm sure.
And when we're looking at the sex education conversation, there's so much missing where it's like, where can sex education be more responsible to creating the context around intimacy, creating the context around consent and being with your partner and not theatrics. I mean, I think it would have actually been helpful for me growing up to have talked about porn in my sex ed class.
That would have made sense. And again, I'm coming from a different era. When I went to sex ed, like we watched the gross videos about all of the STDs and what your genitals would look like, if you were sleeping with the wrong people, right? Um, but they never they never put any of those things together for context for us, right? So like how do we end up in these situations? How do we talk to a partner? How do we become into in that intimate space before we get into that sexual space? What's the difference between intimate space and sexual space? you know
Mhm.
um what does that look like, and all of these different things. And right now the youth have this, and not even the youth, like the millennials are coming into this sex positivity, which I think it's fantastic. But I think it's also um a reincarnation of the 70s, right,
Mhm.
when everyone was about free love and the whole nine. And but I think that the youth and the millennials in this particular generation are a lot more about the intimacy than it is necessarily the sex. And they're very specific and very explicit about what they want. Like, we got Grinder, we have all of these hookup apps. It's like, okay, look, if I'm on this app, then I just want sex, no strings attached, no this, no that. So how are they able to negotiate um, the different nuances, right? Coming from my era, like how are we supposed to figure out that there's love, there's sex, there's infatuation, there are all of these different things that could look the same for us, right? And they didn't explain like those different chemical reactions that have happen after you have sex, and how they can muddy the waters of emotion and whatever else, right? And all of those different pieces. Sexual health, like sex ed, sucked for us. Now that I'm adult, it truly sucked. There's a huge gaping hole
Yes,
in sex ed.
absolutely, absolutely. And I have to say, like I'm no spring chicken, so like I'm a little bit outdated, and maybe it's gotten better. Like maybe a youth, someone who like just graduated college can write in and let us know how it is these days. But but
Right,
yeah, absolutely. Sex ed. One of our listeners just posted, sex ed only covers the bare basics, and that's absolutely true. Like it
right,
just covers the bare minimum. And I think about how, like, we didn't even talk about hormones. Like
right,
hormones are critically important in the realm of sex and sexuality. And like you pointed out, lust, intimacy, um, you name it, all of these are different ways in which to relate to people sexually.
hmm
you also mentioned that, like millennials, like, yes, there is this like sex positivity movement, which I think is beautiful. I'm a part of it. And I think that movements tend to ebb and flow. So, like, yeah,
Mhm.
this is resurging what was going on in the 70s, but I think it's
Right,
taking it to the next evolution. Because it's
right,
not just about like free love and free sex, but like, how can everyone be in this conversation in a way that's healthy?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I do appreciate about this whole movement around sex positivity, because body positivity, self-esteem, all of these other aspects are all wrapped up in what does it look like to be sex positive, right? Because you have to be body positive in order to enjoy it, right? And whether you're body positive about yourself or others, right? And so I like all of the different aspects that are being like really knitted together in this sex positive movement. But I also think that there's a lot that's still missing, because we still have my generation and the generation that came before me, right? Because when we had sex education, or we came into our knowing around sexual health, um, there wasn't any mention of different bodies, different genders, different ways of enjoying sex. So anything outside of the heteronormative was freaky, right? Anything outside of the vanilla was freaky. And
Yeah.
so, still those in my generation, and before me, are still going through this, still trying to figure out how to kind of meld into this new movement, right?
Mhm.
Knowing that we want to, but there's still the stigma, there's still that taboo that we've carried, like our whole lives. I'm 40. So for 40 years, I was told, you don't talk about sex, you don't think about sex, you don't masturbate, you don't do any of that, right? And so now as a 40-year-old, I'm like, I missed out on a lot.
Man. And there's so much shame. Like everything
Right.
that you're pointing to, it's like the amount of shame that's out there in the world. That's why I do this work. It's like I want to stop perpetuating shame around something that's so intrinsically natural to who we are as a species, and natural to us even being here.
Right.
Like,
And I think sex is just as natural as farting.
thank you.
Everybody's got to do it.
Thank you.
Well, everybody doesn't have to do it, but you know, it's an option for everyone.
Okay, you meant sex, not farting. Because I think if
Yes,
someone didn't fart,
right.
that could be
Yes.
deadly.
Sex is an option, but it's definitely for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But farting, everyone has to do. Exactly.
Oh, but yes, I love that. I love that. I think it's like no, like sex, it's an option. It's something that people can choose to come to, but it's also very natural, and it's
Right.
natural based on our hormonal environment as well. It's like you may have hormones where you're just like, I have to go be a part of that. And you may not. Like, it's okay, but to just not be ashamed by who you are naturally.
Right.
And that's something I think recently I saw. And you know how media and TV, they always paint the best picture of everything that's happening in the world. So we're talking
Right.
about sex education, and they were talking about like anal douching for anal sex and like things of that nature. And I'm like, oh, okay, like we've actually come a little bit further, it sounds like.
Okay.
And I actually have to wonder, like, are we still being inclusive of all people? Are we actually creating the space to be inclusive where people are not marginalized?
Right.
And I look at both sex education, and I also look at the porn industry for both of these, of like what's actually out there in the mainstream. Like, do we even think about what's mainstream and what's not?
Right. And I
Um,
think,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. um, I think that in the way, I mean, like, I haven't been an avid porn watcher lately, but I think that for a lot of us, especially the first couple of years on T, for a lot of trans guys, I can speak, or trans mass folks, sex, I mean, porn was like important,
Mm,
and it was the safest way for me to get that energy out. You know what I mean? But I think that if we're going to be inclusive, one thing I didn't see was a reflection of me during that period, right? I didn't see um, people like me having sex, right? Because low key, I was looking for that because I need to know like where I'm going, and that's where the education comes in, right? How do I figure this out? Um, so I saw very little, black trans men or trans masculine folks like engaging in sex with other people, regardless of what that looks like, right? Um, because you see a lot of the white guys, you see a lot of the other folks. You don't
Yeah.
see us. You don't see us, and you don't see what that looks like about, like body movements, positions, all of those things, because we have different parts, right? We have different ways of expressing ourselves. So where do we look to find that? And I gave up after a while and was like, you know what? I'm gonna figure it out, make up some new shit myself.
There you go. There you go. And I think that there needs to be people in the industry who are producing more
Right.
of these marginalized conversations. Because I completely agree. Like I got to a point in my life where I was like, I don't like watching black porn. And I didn't understand why I didn't like watching black porn. And it wasn't until I got that most porn that features people of color is shot through a white lens.
Mhm.
That was when I was like, that's why I don't like it. So it's interesting because like when there is inclusion, there's often a lot of conversations that are still exclusion is exclusatory. Ugh, whatever. You know where I'm going with
Exclusionary.
exclusionary.
I'm here
Thank
for you.
you. I'm just gonna make up a word and we all gonna roll with
Hey, I'm
it.
good with that too.
But yes, very exclusionary. And the part that concerns me is like when I think about it, based on my life experience and where hormones go, I honestly feel like more teenagers watch porn than any other demographic because the hormones are so there. Like I have, as an adult, I almost never watch porn, but when I was a kid, I was so
Right.
fascinated. I had to know all the things, and it's crazy what you'll come across. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe me, I think that, I went through two sets of puberty. So, going through the first set and watching porn looked way different than the second set, the second time, at when I was 30. And I was like, whoa, like, and you have more access as an adult to more things, and you know how to search things better. Um, but it's still, you come across some things that I was like, I didn't even know people did this. Like, as a grown person, I was like, I don't even know how you did that. I'm not going to judge it, but I didn't know people did this. So it's, and like, it wasn't that bad when I was younger, but the sound, the bow chicka bow wow, is definitely stuck in my head.
Yes. Yes. Hello, hello to all our listeners out there. This is so great. Just got a few comments. We've come a long way from VHS and blurry TV channels. That is true. That is
Yes,
true.
that we have.
And for anyone listening, if you have any questions for us tonight, if you have anything, please post it in the chat. We love getting your questions. We love having you be a part of this conversation, and we're so grateful for you here being with us. I wanted so this what you just said, like not even knowing that people did that. Um, One of the things I learned is that the people who are creating like large mainstream porn, they're going based on what people click on. So if it gets a bunch of
Uh,
clicks, they're gonna make more of it. And I think about like, oh heavens, am I gonna say this out loud?
mm,
I think about things like when oh Lord.
I feel like I'm a blush for you.
I know. Um on the internet, Two Girls in a Cup was going around. And it was that thing you had to search. You had to know what it was. And if you haven't looked it up, I'm sorry if I just ruined your night. Because when you go look it up, just sorry for you. But
Uh,
it was the most popular thing ever because people wanted to know what was going on, what is going on in this video. And it got click after click after click. And I'm sure that if you're just following the algorithms, scat porn was like way up here at that point
oh
because
no.
people were interested because they were actually making it to what people are clicking on and they still do it that way. So They're not producing what people do. They're producing what people are entertained by or what they're curious by.
Okay.
Um, yes. Oh no. Yes. Don't look it up
Mm,
if you don't want to know.
yeah, I think I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Yeah. Don't do
You
it.
know, and I don't knock anybody that does it. It's just not for me.
Precisely. Precisely. And if it is for you, I just dropped you a golden nugget. Enjoy.
Maybe it's not golden though.
Oh. You are so silly. Ooh, go.
Mercy. Yeah,
Oh,
I think that porn is an interesting you know what? I really want to know who was that one person that said we can make money off this? Like that one that started this whole get down that said, you know what, somebody's gonna watch this and we're gonna do this. That's my curiosity with porn. Because it goes way back. It goes so far back.
it really does. I honestly think that that is a powerful question. I shared this in one of the previous episodes, but I'm like, I honestly believe that porn was around long before we had videos and television and ways to draw. Like it is probably as old as time because sex is as old as time.
Right.
Like I don't even know. I would have to get into the historical context of sexuality to even know where like the first paid orgy existed where you could like pay to watch.
Right. And that would probably be our first porn, right? But who was that person that said, we should do this?
Yes.
That's where my curiosity is. Because that person was on to something. But if we could go back in time and say, hey, include this too, that would be awesome. You know,
Yes.
around the consent piece, around all of those different pieces, you know, but I think that hopefully porn is getting better about disclosures or telling the whole story because as you said earlier, there's a huge gap, there's a huge missing piece around how humans interact with each other in that sexual or intimate space that probably is a missing link for a lot of folks. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I wanted to just touch base on before we complete tonight is actually like how to tell if your porn is actually like popping up safe and consensual and in alignment with, like your personal ethics. Like it's okay to be into taboo. It's okay to be into anything, as long as what's happening on the other side is not causing further harm.
Mhm.
So, absolutely just taking note of whether or not your porn has disclaimers, like all models are 18,
Right.
taking note of whether or not the people in the video look comfortable. Like, are they actually there? Like, are they a hell yes in that scene? Are they excited to be there? And then just being mindful of, it's like I personally, and this is a personal note, y'all, because I love to just overshare. One of my things was amateur porn. Like I love watching amateur porn, but I loved it because I love watching couples make love.
Right, but I
Like
think even amateur porn I think is more realistic than big picture porn, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Yes.
even in that, you also, you know, the same rules apply. Are the folks are they over 18 or is there a disclaimer saying that they're over 18? Do they look comfortable? Did you just watch rape culture instead of a porn, an amateur porn, right? So
Right.
it's definitely a lot of things that you still have to look at even when you're looking at amateur porn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Is there anything else you can think of that the audience, that the listeners might want to know about tonight?
Um, no, be freaky if you want to, but do it how you do it, right? And we really want to, well, me personally, when it comes to sexual behaviors, be safe. Okay, condoms are a thing. Prep is a thing. Pep, if you make a mistake, right? Um, Make sure that you are getting checked out. Make sure you're going to the doctor. Make sure that your bits are in order, right? But also know your status. Also know um, your partners, even if it's a hookup, right? Be safe about it. Okay, prep
Absolutely.
is absolutely a thing.
I love that. Yes, be safe. Be safe for yourself. Be safe for your partners.
Exactly.
Um, and whatever you're watching, be mindful of whether or not it's causing more harm out in the
Right.
world. Just be mindful of, what you let into your own psyche, what you let shape you, what you learn from, and just taking note. Like I personally, like, if it's in a language I don't understand, that's one of the things that concerns me. I
Right.
should speak more languages, and I can't tell how consensual this is.
There you go. That's
So,
real.
yes,
But
yes,
definitely safe sex, safe sex, safe sex. But enjoy it. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself and the other folks that you're engaging with.
yes. Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on this episode of the It Cast. The It Cast is our community outreach podcast. We are increasing diversity in conversations on health and sexuality, creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Please visit us on Patreon to support the It Cast and learn more about our work at NikaCherrelles.com. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel and tell all your friends. Tell everybody, run, tell that, and send us some love. Thank you
Right.
for joining
Subscribe.
us. What was that?
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Hit the button. Hit the button. Right there. There you go. That button right there. Thank you. Appreciate it.
right there.
Right. Right there.
Good night.